Welcome to today's webinar, Facilities Management Challenges and Opportunities in 2016. I'm Ann Cosgrove, the Editor-in-Chief of Facility Executive Magazine, and this webinar today is presented by Canon Business Process Services. Here at the magazine, we recently collaborated with Canon Business Process Services to survey our readership on the challenges and opportunities related to facility support services. This webinar today will address some of these findings. Before we get started, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. First, please note the control panel on your screen. This is where you can submit questions via the question box in that panel. Please send your questions in at any time, and our speaker will address them after the presentation or during. Also, please note the orange arrow on the left side of that control panel. Clicking on that will either expand or collapse the panel, so please be sure it's expanded so you can access the question box. Also, if at any time you experience a technical difficulty, please send a message to us in that question box and we'll address it right away. Now I'd like to introduce your speaker today, Ted Ardelian. Ted is Director of R&D at Canon Business Process Services based in New York. Ted works closely with client service delivery, operations, technology partners, and customers to develop new services based on changing client needs and technology. His 25 years of business experience also includes financial and operational management in outsourcing, management consulting, and manufacturing. He has presented at industry conferences and written numerous articles on a wide range of business process outsourcing topics. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ted.
Thank you, Ann, and welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you may be. I am glad to be here and share with you the results of this study that we completed recently. And we announced the results, not the results, but the highlights of the study in the November Facilities Executive issue of the magazine. And today we would like to go deeper into the data that was discovered or learned from the survey and share with you, and hopefully discuss with you additional thoughts and ideas we have as far as providing support or data in any way we can to help you in your jobs as far as managing facility support services. So with that, we have our agenda today is to cover the survey, to discuss the results, talk about some trends in corporate services that we see based on this study and other studies that we have, talk about one idea or one service that has emerged recently to support facilities executives with their challenges in addressing the issues and concerns they have about provisioning the services. And through that, talk through a case study quickly to give you a sense of what we're doing and what can be done, what you could be doing also in your sites and operations. And at the end, hopefully have some questions that we can answer for you or that I can answer for you. Feel free to use the panel on the right to submit questions. We'll do our best to monitor those questions and answer them in this broadcast today. If we cannot get to them, then of course I would be happy to get back to you through email or phone or however you would like to communicate. Before I get into the survey responses and results, for those who may not be familiar with who Canon Business Process Services is and what we do, quickly, we are a subsidiary of Canon USA, which is part of the bigger Canon group of companies. Our services include business process outsourcing, such as accounts payable, claims processing, auto finance processing, and so on. Information and document management services, such as running imaging and scanning centers, managing records functions for organizations. Corporate services, which include mail, print, shipping, receiving, reception, hospitality, audiovisual, concierge, all those sort of soft FM services that we all know. Corporate campus logistics is a new service that I'll be touching on today as part of a response to the challenges and that we're going to be discussing in the survey data. Warehouse and material management is another service that sort of goes hand in hand with our corporate campus logistics. And finally, light industrial workforce services. These are services that employ or provide people to support manufacturing operations such as assembly or testing or material management, material handling, warehouse operations, and things like that. We provide our services primarily on client sites. We also have offshore processing centers for the BPO operation that require document processing behind the scenes. Our services are built on Six Sigma Process Excellence methodology, which is basically focused on process enhancement, process improvement through Six Sigma. And of course, to the extent needed or as possible, we inject technology to improve the process and the services that we provide and the quality of our services. And finally, we have about 4,500 people in the U.S. And in terms of overall company profile, we are proud to have been named one of the Global 100 outsourcing providers for the past 9 years, as indicated on the screen by the IAOP logo. So with that, let's get into the survey results. And as I was coming to work this morning, preparing for this presentation and thinking about who's going to attend and how many people and all those things, I was thinking about Mr. Trump and hoping that he's not going to break news again today before this webcast and draw away all my attendees that were planning to attend the webcast. So I don't know what happened because I didn't pay too much attention to the news since this morning. So let's get into the survey. As we said before, we conducted the survey back last year, kind of in August, September timeframe. The survey was in the field with the questions. We gathered the questions, put the data together, and as I said, in the November issue of Facilities Executive Magazine, we kind of provided some highlights. And right now we have a report putting all together the data that will be available to you. If you would like one, please let us know. From the data, we had about 474 people responding to the survey, but we wanted to focus the survey on larger sites with at least 500 employees, because the focus, our goal and our direction for the survey was to gain insights about how facilities management executives manage the facility support services at large population sites or large or dense sites. And we wanted to uncover basically what is important and what is challenging in providing the facilities support services. And we define facility support services, as I mentioned before, these soft services, soft FM services like mail, print, records, imaging, shipping and receiving, concierge, reception, supplies management, all those services that interface basically with employees day by day in providing the facility support services or providing the services they need to do their jobs. And there is a reason, which I'll discuss later, as to why we are focusing on that. But quickly, we're focusing on that because we are noticing that many large corporations are consolidating locations and building these large facilities. And as a service provider to clients such as that, we are asked to manage those larger facilities. And we feel that we have learned something from that process. from going from a site with hundreds of employees or even 1,000 to sites with 3,000 or employees or 5 or 10,000 employees, where the service level is basically white glove resort-like service that companies want to provide for their employees. And when you are faced with that kind of standard, obviously things have to change in providing the services. So anyway, that's kind of quick background from our side. So we took the survey respondents. We stopped at 104 respondents that had the site size that we wanted, but also the respondent had to be executive level responsible for facilities management services. And the numbers on the screen there just show how many people we had in the survey. The region that we focused on was U.S. only. And the job function of the people who responded were primarily, as you can see on the screen, facilities management, about 70 people, real estate management, warehouse, procurement, and other services or responsibilities. So that's kind of what the background of the survey is. In terms of the survey results, one question we asked was, rate the following on the level of importance in providing superior facility support services. And the results here are ranked in the order of, from the highest to the lowest. As you can see on the screen, there were 15 criteria or dimensions or functions that we asked about. And on the top, as you can see, I sort of segmented them in thirds. The top third being sort of in the green, ranked the highest or best in terms of the frequency of response. So customer satisfaction, for example, ranked number 1 with 94% of the people saying that customer satisfaction is very important to their operation or for managing their operation. The second being compliance with safety and security, with 91% of respondents selecting that. Right staffing, meaning having the right level of staffing that is required. 90% of the people selected that. On-time delivery of services and supplies and all the things that are requested from facility support, ranked fourth with 83% of people selecting that. Staff retention, 82%. And then the second, third, as you can see, reducing response time, having the right inventory level, reporting and analysis, tracking materials and supplies, managing office equipment, such as printers and multifunction devices, faxes, mail equipment and things like that, kind of ranked in the middle. And then at the bottom, warehouse inventory management ranked 11 with 54% selecting that. Security for mail and package ranked number 12 with 53%, which I found very interesting given the security awareness in corporate world these days and in the world in general. Implementing technology to control the flow of services and materials that need to be received and distributed across the campus or across the site is, again, was kind of a surprise to us, ranking number 13 with 48%. Shipping and receiving also ranked 48. And providing office services such as mail, reception, conference room, audiovisual, hoteling, ranked at the bottom in terms of number 15 with only 38% of the people saying that is important to them.
Excuse me, Ted?
Yes.
Yes, hi, it's Ann. I
Yeah.
just wanted to jump in for a moment because we did have a few questions related to the results that you're showing right now and have been discussing. I did want to ask one you just passed by, implementing technology to control flow at number 13. Can you just elaborate a bit more on that, what that means?
Yes, Ann. Good question. When you go from, let's say, a smaller site to a large site, let's call it super size or mega site with thousands of people, the complexity of the services increase dramatically. The service standards that you have to provide or deliver increase dramatically. And in order to manage that more efficiently, more effectively, you can do it with a lot of people, which costs money, or you can do it with some people, but additional technology that you don't have today. So, for example, there are technologies that we use specifically for managing the sort of the logistical aspects of facility support services in order to make those services, in order to coordinate those services and deliver them on time with greater accuracy, with less people, less effort. So, for example, at the dispatch center or desk, there is technology to be used to schedule and plan and reorganize the flow of what needs to be done. You have routine activities on a daily basis, but then you also have interruptions on a daily basis. So when those interruptions come up, you need to rejuggle your schedules, but you can't forget about things that were scheduled and that were delayed. So you got to balance and reshuffle all your activities. So that's one example. Another example of technology is tracking the people and tracking the vehicles or the equipment that the people who are doing the work around the site, you want to have visibility in that. You want to know where they are, what they're doing. You want to control the safety aspects of those things. For example, you can't have vehicles that anybody can jump on and drive on. You got to log on and have some security measures to them and things like that. So there's all kinds of technology, and of course then you want to collect data automatically so that you can look at the end of the day, at the end of the week, the month, and see, well, how many deliveries, how many stops did I make, where were those, and how long did it take, and what was the average time between them, and all those things. So again, there's a lot of technology that goes into automating the site operation. I hope I answered the questions in great enough detail, but we can discuss that offline if anybody's interested.
Thanks,
okay, so I'll move to the next slide, which asks basically the same question, except it's asking about which of the following, the same criteria, the same metrics or activities as on the previous question, but here we're asking about which ones represent a degree of challenge in delivering high-quality facility support services. And as we can see here, I'm using the same color scheme as I used in the previous slide, so we can kind of compare and track the same activity from question to question. So in this question, the customer satisfaction ranked number 1 also in terms of what is challenging and very challenging to execute or to do as far as facilities support services. Right staffing, having the right staffing level ranks number 2. Reducing response time ranks number 3, which sort of rose up from the middle tier. Staff retention was number 4 with 79% of the people selecting that. Compliance with safety and security ranks number 5 with 74%, which was a little bit higher in the importance question. And then in the middle, we kind of have a mixture of some of the criteria or metrics that were in the top third and some that were in the bottom third. So for example, on-time delivery, the green bar, number 7, ranked 68%, was rated 68%, which moved down from the top third. But implementing technology to control flow, for example, was ranked 9 with 66%, which in the previous question in terms of importance was not viewed as important, but in terms of challenging to implement was viewed as more challenging to implement. And then finally in the bottom third, we have office services, mail reception, conference room, and so on, still at the bottom, shipping and receiving, security for mail packages, and so on. And this is interesting because these things are part of facility support services. They're behind the scene, but they don't rank top of mind in terms of importance or challenging. My theory, or from our perspective, since we provide these services in in hundreds of locations for customers, I like to think that these things are under control at this point for most people. They don't give you the problems that other issues give you. The other thing that I like to point, which is in the next slide, which is in this slide, where we're putting this data, these two questions side by side. Looking at this data and analyzing and thinking about it, what we're noticing is that at the top, the items are more managerial in nature, planning and things like that, as opposed to actually doing services, providing the services. So in that respect, you can look at it and say, well, what is highly important is also challenging to do if it's managerial in nature. But if it's actually tactical or executional, then most people, I think, the way I'm interpreting this is most facilities executives are seeing those things are sort of under control for whatever reason. Another question that we asked was achieving service excellence in terms of what tools or techniques or methods make the greatest impact in improving facility support services. And with this question, the results were that facilities management applications ranked the highest with 61%. 31% of the people said it has a moderate impact. The facilities management applications in this question was referring to the traditional facilities management software and tools that are out there to manage the traditional, mostly the hard services, the maintenance and the actual facilities. The second line item on this chart, tools to communicate, coordinate, and schedule the daily orders for services and supplies, ranked number 2 with both high impact and moderate impact. And that type of software is what I was referring to before in terms of what is used to deliver more efficient support services, to schedule, to coordinate, to communicate, to track, collect data, and things like that. What is interesting from our perspective is how low the Six Sigma quality improvement methods and techniques were rated or ranked in this study, with only about 48% saying they find some impact from their use, and only about 24% said they see high impact in their use. And that is, to us, that is something that's interesting, because we use Six Sigma a lot in client work, in client services, because it's a process improvement. And all these services in facilities management are processes, basically people doing the work. And one way to reduce the workload, one way to reduce the errors, to improve the service from a cost but also from a efficiency point of view, requires looking at the process, changing the process, and improving it through changes, through redesigning how you do the work. Yes, technology is part of that, but at the end of the day, technology can't move an object, can't schedule it and make sure that it gets on time with quality and so on. So we kind of found that to be somewhat of a surprise. And we have a poll question.
Yes, we do, Ted. I was just waiting for you to finish your thought there. Our attendees can now see the poll. Please take a few moments to vote on that. The question here is, what strategies are you using or planning to use to achieve service excellence in facility support services? And you can select all that apply. Reorganize facility support services under one manager, buy and use technology to increase efficiency, outsource facility support service to one or many providers, build or hire professional logistics capability to coordinate, or none of the above. Please take a moment to cast your vote. Remember, you can choose one or more. Thank you.
This is going to be interesting.
Yeah, so when we get the results, I will read them aloud and let you have a moment to absorb them as well, Ted. Let's see. Okay, so thank you again for voting. Let's see, just over half, buy and use technology to increase efficiency. And the next second choice, popular choice, was a little over a quarter, outsourcing facility support service to one or many providers. So there you go.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The 51% buy and use technology, that we see that with customers a lot, and sometimes that works, sometimes that does not work, because as they say, if you automate a broken process, you're just doing it faster in a broken way. So sometimes automation does not necessarily deliver, which is very interesting. The other outsourced facility support services, and we couldn't, frankly, we couldn't, insert the whole statement there. What we wanted to also include in that statement is that when you outsource the facility support service, you are also stating or demanding a service level agreement, which is a minimum quality and deliverable, which should match your your expectation in terms of quality, customer satisfaction, and all those metrics that we talked about in the at the beginning of the study with the dimensions that we looked at. So having the right staffing level, of course, that's a given. If you outsource, the service provider has to have the right staffing level, because otherwise they can't provide the quality service, and so on. So this is a very interesting poll result. Thank you all for participating. So with that, yeah.
Hi, it's Ann again. I just want to mention that we did get a few questions in about your previous slide with the findings, specifically around Six Sigma and process improvement overall. We had a question that said, as you were commenting on the results with Six Sigma, and someone had asked you, is it possible that organizations are embracing process improvement but not using Six Sigma? So maybe that's part of the story there.
Yeah, Six Sigma is a technique, somewhat of a process also. Requires change management or implementation once you've analyzed your problem and detected, discovered what might be the cause of the problem, the root cause, and then implementing the right changes or re-engineering the process, redesigning the process. So it's something that we use significantly and frequently with clients, because oftentimes processes get sort of unraveled. They change over time, and from time to time you need to come back and you need to have a discipline, a scientific approach, a database approach, data-driven approach, I should say, to be able to measure, benchmark, then map out the process as is, change it to a redesign how that process should be changed, and then implement those changes. And that requires Six Sigma, black belt type people who understand that process and can do the analyze, collect the data, and then also drive or oversee the implementation of that change, and then measure the results, and then come back and remeasure again. So it's basically, if you don't measure it, you can't improve it, approach, and that is a technique that we see a lot with in office services, because again, it's people processes that need to be changed, and technology can't help you there. Technology has its use, making people more efficient and so on, but you still need to change the process. So I hope I answered the question adequately there. So moving on to the next question. Which facility support jobs are the most difficult to staff? And this one here, the results from the survey came in at 43% being the most difficult job to staff, given the list of jobs that we asked them to look at. So office support, reception, mail, copy, scanning, records, and conference room, for example, having the people or staffing the people for those functions came in at 43, warehouse and storeroom at 29. So 29% of the people said warehouse or storeroom management was difficult to staff. Shipping and receiving, 28, and dispatch and order taking or ticketing at 27. Not a surprise about office support, reception. These require a lot of training, management attention, and a growth path for folks to go through or to have in front of them. And that is something that we see with many clients, and in terms of why they may outsource those functions. It's hard to retain people unless you have a process that you can grow them through. For example, cross-training and career path and development. And once people understand that and they see that there's that path, then the retention is much easier and more satisfying for people to stay in their current jobs. And there's more room for them to move laterally from one activity or one service to another. So, working in mailroom for a while, or going to print center, then getting into something like warehouse or logistics or imaging or records and so on. People develop that way and progress. Next question we asked was achieving service excellence through facility support services. Which facilities support activities are most difficult to manage? And the results here are also interesting, at least to me, in that the top three here, staff levels, response times, and inventory levels. Staff levels cited 45% of the people responded or selected that. Response times 34%, inventory levels 26%. All these three are managerial in nature. So basically, what this tells us is that planning and managerial work is harder than doing the work, which are the other support activities that are more difficult that are less difficult to provide. So, for example, the dispatch and order taking, ticketing jobs or function, and deliveries and office support and warehouse and shipping and receiving, those activities are more doing the work, and facilities executives are not seeing that as difficult as dealing with maintaining right staffing levels and ensuring high response time, or at least the response time according to their standard or service level that they set for themselves. Next question that we asked about was rank the facilities support services in order of greatest need of improvement at your sites. And just want to point out, this chart is the lower the bar, the smaller the bar, the more improvement needed. So I just wanted to point out that it's a little bit different than the rest of the charts. So here what we're seeing again is interesting, that the services that were ranked at the bottom in terms of importance or a challenge in the first questions that we looked at, for example, shipping and receiving and security of mail and package handling, those are cited as in most need of improvement, which could be interpreted that maybe facilities executives are not paying close enough attention to those activities. So if you're not on top of them in terms of they're not that important and they're not that challenging as far as you're concerned, you may find that they could be problematic after a while, and then attention needs to be shifted to them, get them back into control, and then move on to the other more pressing problems or issues that is facing the facility's operation. In terms of...
Excuse me, Ted?
Yeah.
Excuse me, Ted. Sorry to break in. I did want to note that we had gotten a question or some comments on the slide you had just been on, as well as the one previous, about the various types of services and services around facilities. And someone had asked us, why isn't cleaning staff and those operations included in the questions? So just wondering if you could address that briefly.
Right. So the reason for that is simple. This survey was focused on as I was saying at the beginning, we wanted to focus on the soft services, but there are people-facing services that interact with people, that impact what the people or the employees see as a service, yes, cleaning is important, security is important, all those things, but people don't necessarily interact with those activities or services. For example, cleaning janitorial provided after hours, people don't necessarily interact with that, although some of that could be done during the day as well, but it's not prevalent. So that's the reason why we didn't ask, because we sort of had to put our hands around the scope of the survey, because it could get out of hand with so many services that are part of facilities.
Thanks, Ted.
So getting back to the question about what KPIs do you measure for your sites? Again, here we selected some, and we couldn't select all of them, but 83% of the people said service requests completed on time is one measure that they look at frequently or is part of their dashboard. Customer satisfaction, no surprise there, since we've learned about that being important and challenging at the beginning of the survey. Service request completed the first time was selected by 44%, and staff utilization ranked or came in with 38%. And finally, number of non-standard service requests came in at 36. Number of non-standard service requests, these are sort of I'm sure everybody knows, but in our survey, it was meant to be those services that are not sort of planned, typical, and usually provided. So that's kind of the survey. And with that, I like to transition now to the next phase or chapter in the webcast, and that is to talk a little bit about the workplace trends that are impacting facilities management and corporate support services, because, as I mentioned before, organizations, companies are changing. One thing that is changing is the expansion or the building and the expansion or consolidation of facilities. And the pictures here on the screen just show two campuses, but in my research and looking at this for the past year or so, I have hundreds of pictures that are sort of similar to these, where you have mega campuses, and some of them are technology type companies on the West Coast, but throughout the country there are others: energy companies, utilities, media companies, manufacturing, healthcare, even financial services and insurance. Although some of those sort of campuses are more urban campuses, like, for example, insurance companies may have 3 towers downtown Manhattan, for example, that are half a block or a block away, but it consists, that's their campus, that is their location where all their employees in New York City are housed or work from. And the services can't be a campus like you would find in an industrial site or something like that out in the country where you have land. In an urban setting, the services that are needed and how you manage those are nevertheless similar or may have slight challenges. So companies are expanding and consolidating these facilities. Why are they doing these? Well, one reason is productivity. Another reason is lowering cost of real estate, for example, managing space better, using their space better. But recently, what we're seeing is care for employees, care for providing a better work environment and quality of life for their employees. So they're providing amenities, and amenities in such a way that attracts people and basically makes it easier to go to work, because there are all these services and things that you can have at work that you don't want to stay at home. Aside from creating collaborative spaces and things like that, and getting people together as a community and supporting them with every need that they possibly need, within reason, obvious, to help them bring together, collaborate, build teams, and basically the result of that is efficiency at work, but also better products, faster products, bringing products to market faster, for example, and so on. So what is happening is integration, and the other part, I should say, is in terms of why they're doing is integration of real estate and facilities management. And one sort of byproduct of that strategy to integrate real estate and facilities is outsourcing real estate management, which basically brings together real estate and facilities. So in terms of additional trends, I have here on the screen from various studies like KPMG and another study later on that I have from JLL, talk about, again, the real estate and facilities changes and what is driving these changes. Reducing costs, for example, is a big one. Improving global delivery and operating models of real estate and facilities, standardizing the services and so on. Improving process performance. Again, this is more on the real estate and facilities side. Gaining economies of scale, changing the business models. One change there is the bundling and consolidation of services, reducing number of supplies, reducing consumption. All of those are the result of bundling or consolidating services and service providers and things like that. Increasing use of balanced scorecard and to track and measure service providers and services internally is another trend. Increasing competitive bids when renewing outsourcing contracts and considering alternatives rather than simply renewing contracts, again, is another a trend that we're seeing, at least through this study from KPMG. So what is the result of this? The result is these mega campuses that basically require more sophisticated support services, facility support services. So as I was saying before, these facilities have 2,000 or 5,000 or even 10,000 employees in one location. It's a small city. High office worker density is another byproduct of obviously bringing together more people. You need to provide more amenities, and amenities are provided both to improve work life, but also to attract and compete for employees. On a side note here, the projection of the labor pool going forward 5, 10, 20 years is projected to decline in the U.S. There will be less workers available. So companies need to fight harder for their employees, retain them longer, and so on. One way to do that is to rethink your facilities and rethink why employees should stay with you versus going with someone else. Pay and other factors aside, the facilities could help attract and retain employees. Transport systems are required when you have large facilities, such as, so you have vehicles, you have streets, you have tunnels in some cases. And of course, technology is wrapped all around that transport system to be able to see in that transport system, see where the equipment is and how it's being used and how frequently, what is the utilization and all that. Then you have inventory material management. When you have large locations with 5,000 employees, you're going to order more supplies. You need to process those supplies in a different way. You need people to do that in a process. You need logistics, for example, to dispatch, control in real time, track all the activities, collect data, report. And of course, you have to satisfy customers, your customers being your employees there, with the services that you're providing. So again, the picture here on the right shows you kind of, a warehouse in the bottom left. You have all kinds of equipment and technology, bottom right. You have, workspaces on the top left, such as conference rooms and public workspaces and so on. And of course, top right, is just a map of a campus, which basically spreads across tens or hundreds of acres that require some sort of transportation system to provide the services. So in the end, what's happening is that we are in a state where, on one hand, you have these changes from a real estate and facilities management point of view. On the left side, you have the suppliers that typically provide the services to facilities management, but these suppliers are sort of in operating in silos, meaning that you have best-in-class facility services providers like us, Canon. You have cleaning janitorial providers, you have security providers, and so on, but they typically operate by themselves. And so what you have is a gap where the mega corporate facilities demand a more fluid service that blends some of these services during the day. And for any one of these service providers on the left, it's kind of hard to provide services, let's say, during the day when they normally operate after hours. So there's a gap that needs to be filled for the day operation. So what is that gap? And from our experience, that gap is basically a service that we kind of developed in the last few years. We call it Corporate Campus Logistics Services. And do we have another poll question?
Ted, yes, we do. And as we do this poll question, I'll just remind everyone we have about 5 minutes or so left of the presentation. So please, before we enter the final part of the presentation, please take time to answer this. Has your organization outsourced real estate management and integrated FM with real estate? Please select just one answer. Yes, no, planning to, or it's not in the plan at this time. Please let us know your status at this point.
So I look forward to this question. Let's see what people are saying.
Okay, and our results are up, Ted. Let's see. No, they have not outsourced and integrated, 43%. 36% of our attendees followed up with not in the plan at this time, and about 16% have done so, with 5% planning to. So there you go. Thanks, Ted. I'll let you launch into the final part of your presentation.
Right. So I'm glad I had time to go through the survey results and data, which is more important, and some of the trends. So with that, just a word about our services that we provide to clients. We call it Corporate Campus Logistics. It's a service that was designed for professional, it's a professional logistics service that is embedded or brought into the densely populated workplace sites. basically what it does, or the benefits that it provides, is it consolidates multiple facilities into one contract, one point of accountability, reduces costs, provides technology to manage the logistical operation and to help improve the efficiency of the facility support services, eliminates the burden of recruiting, training, certifying, managing employees as part of that. So, for example, health and safety type training and certifications, helps with reducing safety incidents and things like that. And then finally increases the security and reduces the risk associated with facilities management operations by providing on-demand specialized solutions. So, for example, you may need, or from time to time there are special cases where, let's say, security might be an issue, and it's, what do you do? Well, the guards and the physical security is not going to be able to help you. You need, let's say, a consultant with some technology for, a month or 3 months to analyze the problem. Well, those are the type of solutions that we partner with, and bring to you to be able to solve these problems faster, because we anticipate these things and encounter these things from client to client. What does the service look like? Well, this is just a quick snapshot of an overview, but basically you have the campus logistics operations such as dispatch, the logistics network, the supply and demand planning. You have shipping and receiving and the mail distribution, dock operations, and so on. You may have a shuttle transport, and this is a shuttle for people, but also for equipment, and also taking care of visitors and such that need to come on campus and go from point A to point B and then be escorted back. And then you have transportation for materials, let's call it that. And that can include everything from recycling to shredding to trash collection and disposal. It may include some level of hazmat material handling. And then, of course, you may have warehouse and inventory management, whether this is a big warehouse or some sort of a larger storeroom. But in our experience with customers, most of that, there's a central storeroom, but there are also distributed or many smaller storerooms in different buildings closer to the people. And of course, you have to have the people to manage that, each location, each building, and each storeroom and the distribution. And of course, you distribute all kinds of things like office, print, copy, and so on, pantry information, mail, for example, records, is distributed constantly, maintenance and supplies, and of course you have to take care of moves and things like that. And then the other part is sort of special care transport, which could be anything from food service deliveries to IT hardware to labs, materials, special equipment that require special transport and protection. And of course, you have equipment and technology that you use in this operation, and therefore you have to maintain it and support it. Looking back at the measures and activities that we looked at from the survey at the start, we can see we kind of mapped them on a grid here. And again, the corporate logistical services basically address all those top 5 requirements. For example, customer satisfaction, staffing level, response time, staff retention, safety and security, because again, these are by design built into the service to address those specific metrics. So with that, just a quick description of one site where we're providing these kinds of services, corporate logistics services, energy company, 10,000 employee site or so, many challenges. They looked at how to staff this site or this campus, They looked at pure logistics providers from outside. That didn't really make sense. They looked at internal facility support services. That didn't quite meet their expectation of requirements. So basically, they had to put, or we had to work with them, or we worked with them to put together a specialized service that we call Corporate Campus to bring it all together. It's an 18-hour-a-day operation with hundreds of vehicles and thousands of deliveries a week in terms of distribution, collection, and so on that need to be taken care of. And I'm sure you all know what happens when something happens unexpected and the whole process needs to be reshuffled. So anyway, in terms of quick takeaways to this webcast, we looked at providing facility support services. The survey basically revealed that managerial responsibilities are at the top of mind in terms of importance and what is challenging for facilities executives. A number of support services rank moderately important but challenging. So those are also top of mind but less important. Trends leading to large, dense population sites increase the complexity of the site, and large populations will adversely impact performance and therefore the quality of service, which is one of the most important things that you worry about. Professional logistics brought into the facilities process helps tremendously in terms of alleviating the concerns and improving the services overall. So with that, I know we're about 3-4 minutes over time. I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to join me. As I said before, the report is available. Let us know if you're interested. And we look forward to our next study that we plan to do later this year.
Thank you. Thanks, Ted. Yes, and as you mentioned, we are a few minutes over. So I just would like to ask you one quick question to make sure we get this person's question answered. It should be a short one. Just wondering, do your logistics services include tracking furniture?
Yes, it can, although we call that asset management. So yes, it can include that. You can apply the same methodology that we apply, for example, to tracking printers and multifunction devices and fax machines and things like that.
Okay, thank you, Ted. All right, well then I will thank you again for your presentation, and to Canon Business Process Services for sponsoring the webinar, and of course thanks to all our attendees for spending the hour and 5 minutes with us. We will have a recording of the webinar available online, along with information on how to receive the report that Ted has mentioned on the survey. So you'll also be getting info on that if you're interested. So thanks again for joining us. You will have that webinar available online at our website at facilityexecutive.com, as well as on the Canon website, and that's cbps.canon.com. Thanks for joining us. Have a great afternoon.